Within the past 6 months, the studio Don't Nod has been busy with its releases. They've recently dropped two games that are miles apart, but both are pretty interesting. You have the climbing game Jusant and Banishers Ghost of New Eden, which I covered more in depth in my last video. If you haven't seen it, it is down in the description. And both of those games are they're so different from each other that I find it really interesting. Jusant feels very indie, whereas Banishers feels very AA or maybe AAA. The indie feel of Jusant, I think, comes from its mechanical focus and art style. I think its art style is very striking, and that kind of makes Jusant stand out over Banisher's more realistic and kind of generic AAA art style. And Jusant's art style reminds me of a lot of indie games. Journey, The Witness, and Firewatch are three of the major ones that come to mind when looking at this art style. A sort of low poly, flat color scheme type of art style that works really well for it. The only thing I have against the art style is I would like the stones to stick out a little bit more in places. There were times where I had to hang against the wall and look around to figure out where I was supposed to go because the handhold rocks blended into the surrounding rocks around it because they didn't stick out with like a different or a slightly like darker color. Most of the time it was fine, but there were just a few times in the sunny area of chapter 3 and the grassy area of chapter 5 that I wasn't sure where I was supposed to go. And that's really my only complaint about Jusant's art style. Jusant's focus on building a single mechanic is great, and I think its gameplay is a bit tighter than what Banishers brought to the table because of this more focused mechanical experience. There's no fluff with the game mechanically. Design, yeah, there's a little bit of it in there with collectibles, but mechanically, the game is very singularly focused. Everything is focused on climbing, using the left trigger to grab with your left hand, the right trigger to grab with your right hand. The left stick moves your character around, or whatever hand you currently are not holding down the trigger for, it moves that around so you can aim at the next place, and you can put down pittance to catch you if you miss a jump or run out of stamina. Mechanically, Jusant is that simple at its core. Sure, they add in other things for each chapter, plants decay in the sun, having to hold on to bugs as they move around to get to the next rock area, and wind that blows you in a direction when you jump. But everything is built on top of the excellent climbing mechanics. And while there's a lot of simplicity in Jusant's mechanics, they are actually they're really good and really tight. But there is something that I think Jusant is lacking in, and it's the thing that I think Banishers does really well. Banishers has an interesting story to go along with its interesting world building, but Jusant has some interesting world building, but its story isn't there for me. I'll be honest, I don't really enjoy stories that are told to you through text on a page within a visual medium. Unless it's a fully text-based game like Oregon Trail or actual character dialogue like Rogue Trader, I don't enjoy reading somebody's journal about what they did or what happened to them while they were there, and then having to piece the story together that way. Especially if you have to actively look for and find the journal pages that are hidden around because they're a collectible. Like, if I start finding the journal pages, I'm just gonna start skimming them and kind of stop caring about reading the journal pages after a few notes. Basically, the way the story of Jusant was being told didn't engross me in its world like Banishers did. If it was told more through a visual medium, using the environment, then I think it would have been a lot more interesting and enjoyable. Like through drawings on the wall that you have to interpret, or something that you trigger with your little sidekick guy, kind of a memory of this place. It would have made it better in my opinion. I know this game is their indie title that doesn't have a lot of support and money behind it, but I think doing something like that, just a little bit more, would have upped it, and it would have actually made it a more enjoyable story and not just really interesting and kind of enjoyable mechanics. But with that being like their indie game, I do think that what Don't Nod did was very interesting. Putting out two games that are so drastically different from each other in terms of style and mechanics was a very interesting strategy this past year. You can tell that Banishers had more resources put towards it because it was published by Focus Entertainment instead of being self-published like Jusant was. But Jusant is still a good experience to play with and see what could be changed in the way third-person games do their climbing to make them a bit more interesting. In the end, I do like both games, and I think they each do things well, but I also think they missed a little bit with each. Jusant's story doesn't hit like Banishers does, and Banishers' mechanics feel looser than Jusant's. But in the end, they both worked well, and I didn't hate my time playing either game. I was able to quickly get through Jusant. It only took maybe 6 hours, if that, or get through the whole game, but I thought it was still pretty fun. Banishers is a bit longer of an experience, especially for someone like me who is playing it over on my Twitch channel, where I think I'm about 15 to 17 hours in, but still kind of enjoying my time with it. And with that, I hope you have a royal day, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you did. Maybe turn on the notification bell to get notified for the next video, and I'll talk to you later.